welcome back to the Real Wrestling Shoot. Chief Ironclaw, Eddie Pittman, and we were just discussing, among other things, the World Wrestling family. Now, I wanted to ask if you could talk a little bit about the tag team division you were involved in.
Yeah, you know, I brought in, I was working out at the health club, and there was, Pensacola had the Pensacola Tornadoes, a professional basketball team here. And they had a guy named Rick Lamb that was a great basketball player. He played with the Phoenix Suns, tore up his knee, went over to Europe and played. But he come back and he was playing for the Tornadoes. And saw him in the gym one day, and he's like, "Hey man, can we work out together?" I'm like, "Sure." So we started working out together, and went to GNC and got these great vitamins, and he just grew. I mean, he was the biggest human being I ever seen, and we got him in the ring, and we had Sam and Junior, Big Sam and Rikishi. We wrestled them a lot and had a lot of fun with them, and naturally, Rod did the Great Coquina and Sika. It was a real strong tag team division. Pat Rose and Bob Holly sometimes, or Bob Holly and Marcel. So we had great tag teams, but once again, he had great workers. But Rick really, he had the professional athlete mentality. If he would have put just a little bit more effort into his wrestling, me and him could have been millionaires. But he was just destroying people.
Right. So, all right, what happened after the World Wrestling family? What organization did you go to then?
Well, I wrestled with IWF out of Orlando and met some people there, some good workers, some just top names today. And
about what year was this, just so we have a time frame?
Well, man, I ain't good with numbers no more years. It's in the 80s,
okay,
maybe later 80s, mid 80s. But and then we worked with Edward Falk down in Louisiana, up in Texas. I got in on the tail end of the Von Erichs, and basically I just followed. It was kind of like Junior, Rikishi, and Big Sam was kind of like my mentors. I kind of just followed them. When they would leave to go to another territory, me and Rick would slide in there, or I would slide in there. So it really worked out good. We, back in the day, it wasn't just working Fridays and Saturdays. It was a full-time job. But just different organizations around. But with some of the workers you see on TV still today, and a lot of the workers that's no longer with us. But yeah, it was good back then, because you went to a locker room, and when you went to the locker room, they expected you to know how to work, And back then, when we did TV tapings, we had jobbers. It ain't like it is now, where you pretty much get the angle shot to you on WWF. They tell the story right there, which builds up to the big pay-per-view.
Right.
We had jobbers because, we didn't want to beat up on, name guys, because they see that on TV, they're not going to come down to the arena. So we had jobbers. And a lot of these jobbers, was good workers, but, they didn't either have the size or the charisma. And a lot of them, they took great pride in being a jobber. And
jobber is kind of like an unsung hero.
The jobber would make you, what we used to do, we got paid, we was under contract, we got so much money. The jobber, they got like $50 for TV tapings. And basically that's what they gave us too, was $50. And that was an all-day thing, TV tapings. But if you had a good jobber, the rule of thumb was, if your jobber did you a good job in the ring and made you look real good, we just give him your $50 too. But and then if you had a jobber that was truly garbage, then you took and rubbed his head on the canvas and gave him a big canvas burn.
Right, right.
So that's the way they did it in the old days.
Now, you spoke a minute ago territories, and I think a lot of the wrestling fans and maybe some of the workers today either don't remember or don't know about it. Having your territory was a big deal back then.
Well, you had your territories, before Vince really took over, and it was basically kind of like that on the tail end of mine. There was always work, I did a lot of work up in New York, and in Chicago with big independent companies, you know, and it was still kind of territorial. You know, you play out here for a while, you run up there to New York, or you run to Tennessee or Kentucky, and you run there for a while with Lawler or Dundee, some of them guys, and you know, you do your thing up there, and it's time for you to come back home. So it was like I said, it's a business. He was always working, but you know, it did get old. You know, I was never really one like to live out of the suitcase.
Right.
And probably that was some of my downfall why I got out of business when I did.
Okay, well, you were mentioning a lot of great names so far in your career. You know, as we're looking back, who were some of your favorites to work in the ring?
Once again, Rodney, you know, Yokozuna, Big Sam, Samu, Junior, Rikishi, Bob Orton.
Wow, yeah.
Bob Orton Sr., Tony Atlas, Jose Rivera, that was a conquistador in the WWF. Jose was a very lovely man. I really learned a lot from him too. Had a lot of fun. He was my roomie overseas. Sika, naturally Sika, Don Fargo.
Right, you did a little traveling with Don Fargo.
Don Fargo. I love Don Fargo. He is like my granddad.
Right.
The people just don't realize what a treasure Don Fargo is. Now at the wrestling reunion we have at Mobile every year, he's treated like royalty over there. Because, you know, here's a guy that had the vision way, you know, you look at Don and you're like, you know, that looks like a rough character. Oh yeah, he's rough and he's tough. And still at 84 years old, he broke his hip the other day, he's coming in the gym, you know, on a walker.
Yeah, I'm thoroughly convinced, even at his advanced age, he could still whoop somebody's butt pretty good.
Oh yeah, here's a guy he's in the big Hall of Fame. I mean, he's in the big Cauliflower Alley Hall of Fame. This is a guy that was raised in Hell's Kitchen, wrestled in Paradise Alley, sold out Madison Square Gardens 3 nights consecutive in a row as the main event.
Wow.
I mean, and if you looked at Don's earlier pictures, I try to get some and bring to you. He could have been Kirk Douglas's stunt double. I mean, he looked just like Kirk Douglas.
I was actually looking at some of those up today, and I was kind of just, it took me back a little bit. I was like, wow, looking at him now and then back earlier on in his career. And
well, you know, I was real fortunate to get to work with some of the men that I got to watch when I was a kid at Channel 3. Ken Lucas, Mr. Kelly, you know, naturally Sika, but I was a little older. You know, I was probably in college or right fit to start college when Sika started. But you know, Lucas and Bob Kelly, Mike Boyette, Mike the Hippie Boyette.
Boy, yes.
If I'm overlooking something, Percy Pringle, you know. I remember Ken Lucas was my next door neighbor when I was a kid. And when I broke in, Mike Boyette had this show over in Mobile. It's kind of like a round table like you're talking having. Mm-hmm. And it was Percy Pringle, Marcel Pringle, let's see, Percy, Marcel, me, Sika, Don Fargo, and Ken Lucas.
Wow, that's a crew right there.
So, and you know, Mike Boyette's the host. And you know, everybody knows Boyette. Boyette's he's out there like Jupiter, bless his heart. And I sat down beside Ken Lucas and I says, you remember me, Ken? He goes, not really. I said, Eddie Pittman. He's like, oh man. He goes, oh, you're going to do well in this business. He said, because I just remember a skinny kid. And, you know, I love Ken Lucas. Learned a lot from Ken. Classy guy. But going back to that show, Mike Boyette was going to bust a block with his head. So naturally, you know, you bake the block and you make it where you can bust it. A gimmick block, let's call it.
Right.
Well, during one of the commercial breaks, Don Fargo switches the blocks and puts a real block there.
Right.
So, you know, Boyette, he lays the block on the table and he goes, all right, I'm fixing to bust this block on my head. So he gets down there and he just, bam! He's like, wow. He hits it again and he starts bleeding from scar tissue up here, you know. He's like, let me try this one more time. Wham! And he's dazed, you know. He goes, let's go to commercial. So they go to commercial and he goes, God damn. He goes, I thought I baked that block long enough. And Fargo was like, yeah, you idiot. That's a real block. I switched it out. Them's the kind of ribs, you know, great rib.
Right. Wow. I also wanted to ask you, we asked who your favorite person to work was, and, not trying to bury anybody. Was there anybody you really didn't like to work?
I can honestly say in the whole time I wrestled, I really didn't care. I mean, I think it went with my my schooling, my teaching. I was Bobby Doll. I hated working Bobby Doll. I just kidding. Bobby's all right, kid. No, I mean I was taught the philosophy of it, and I was taught no means no. I was taught to work as a big man, but I could actually work as a small man, which Sika didn't like that at all. And a story comes to mind. I was working Chick Donovan, Panama City, and I had Chick in a headlock, and Sika and everybody that told me, all the old timers, you got them in a headlock, they'd slap you with an open hand on your back, bap, that hurts. And they're doing that as a rib. And he said, you tell them that you're smart, don't do that, that hurts. So I had Chick in the headlock, and he hits me on the back. I said, all right, Chick, I'm smart. He's laughing. Bap! I said, Chick, I'm smart. That's two now. Don't do it again. He's kicking. He did it again, so I grabbed him by his hair, and I went, bop! And he goes, okay, brother, you're smart. So, even though I was really green in the business, I was smartened up so well by all these gentlemen, Sika, Fargo, Lucas, Percy. I mean, they took the time. And this is the problem. Damn it, when you sit down with these kids, and there's kids I've been talking to lately, and I deserve the respect. I put my time in, I gave my respect. I still give my respect, When them guys told me something, it was the gospel, because they was telling me because they cared. If they didn't care, they wouldn't even fool with you. And that's what's wrong with a lot of workers today. They know everything. They don't want to listen how to get better. What their whole persona of wrestling is, play my music and I walk to the ring. After they get to the ring, they're lost. Because they don't want to listen. And that's what really pisses me off about the kids nowadays. They do not want to listen. And I really didn't have nobody I really didn't want to work. I mean, I had a good time. I had fun in the ring. That's what it's about.
Okay, well, we're running a little short here for this segment, but we're going to come back here in just a few minutes. We're going to talk about old school wrestling, OSW. Stick with us.